Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we'll be starting a new video series on the C programming practice. So we will start from very basic C programs and then we will move towards more advanced topics. We will cover almost each and every topic of the C programming and we will practice it in this playlist series. We will also learn some data structures like linked list, binary trees, and how to implement them in C in future videos. So stay tuned for that. And I believe that after this, watching this whole playlist series, I believe that you're going to have enough knowledge to start programming by yourself. So we will start our C programming series with a simple and most basic um, C program, and it's basically we will write two programs, but the second program will be just modification in the first program. So C program to add n numbers, n integers and n natural numbers. So let's start with this. So there are the required knowledge that you need to have is the basic C syntax. You need to have the knowledge of for loop, and you have to know the knowledge of the arrays. So let's start this program. So the first thing that we need to ask the user how many numbers he wants, how many integers he wants to add. Let's say so for that we will define one variable called n, which will store the number of elements, the number of integers that the user wants to add. Let's say if the user wants to add five integers, then the n will be five. If the user wants to add six integers, the n will be six. So this n represents the number of elements that the user wants to add. So we will ask the user to enter the number of elements that he wants to add. So enter the number of elements that you the user want to add, right? Perfect. Now we need to when the user will enter that value like five, we need to store it somewhere, right? And as I mentioned, that n will represent that number. In order to store that value in C, we use one function scanf, and we use the operator %t, the and we will use it. As I mentioned that you need to know the basic sentence. So %ht is used to store the value, integer value at particular location, and the first argument is the this percentage d, and the second after comma we say this address operator and operator it's called is the address operator, address of what, address of n, right? Perfect. Now first part is done. So we ask the user how many values he wants to add, and we have stored that value in n variable. Now we need to we can do it. We need to store those values at a particular location. We can use arrays. That's the most basic simple one, and it's really helpful. Arrays are data structure where you can store values of same data type in an array. So we can have so we want to store integer value, so we will the data type of the array will be int, and let's say we give it the name num, right? And now what should be the size of num, right? This is the basic syntax of initializing an array. So what should be the size of n? Now we know that the let's say when the user will enter there how many integers he wants to add, so we can, rather than giving it some random number, we can just give it the same number, the same value as the number of elements, let's say n, right? So if the user wants to add five elements, so the array will contain five, so the size of the array will be five, right? So this is now we have defined the array. Next what we have to do, we have to take the values from the user and store it um in the array. So for that we will use for loop, and let me just initialize I here, I and j. So these are the I and j will we use in the for loop, one I in this for loop and one and the j in the next for loop, these variables. So So we'll start from 0 and we'll move till less than n, and we will increment it by 1. Now, why I have started with 0? Because the index in C programming starts always from 0. So it's, let's say if the n value is 5, so the size will start from the first element will be num0, the second will be num1, the third element will be num4, the third element will be num2, the fourth element will be num3, and the fifth element will be num4. So I will just show you here. So this is the zeroth element, this is the first element. These are some examples. Just I will show you. I will explain it when we will execute the code. So 0, 1, num2, num3, num4. So we don't need to go to 5. We need to start from 0 and we will go till less than 5. We don't have to go till 5, right? So that's why I said num I is less than n, I less than 5, right? So here we will ask the user to enter enter the percentage d element, right? Sorry, element. Now, percentage d element, and we will say I plus 1. Why I'm saying I plus 1? Because I 0. So if I say enter, if I just say I element, let's say, so enter the percentage d element, so it will be enter the percentage, sorry, zeroth element, which is doesn't sounds good, as there is no such thing as zero element. So I will just say I plus 1, and similar it goes with other scenarios. Perfect. Now we will we will store the values of, sorry, percentage d at the location, whatever the value, the first value which will, when it will be entered by the user, it will be stored at the first location of the array. So so the first element will be stored at the zeroth location. So num I, second element will be stored at num1 location, third element will be stored at num2 location, fourth element will be stored at num3 location, and fifth element will be stored at num4 location. So this is the case where we're taking n as 5, where we want to add only 5 numbers, right? Perfect. Now let's move on. Now this is done. We So first we have, in this particular scenario, we have taken the values from the user, that how many numbers he wants to add. Then we have initialized an array where we will store those numbers, and this is the for loop for storing those numbers in an array. Now moving on, now we need to find the sum of those numbers. So let's uh, before when let's initialize one variable called sum is equals to 0. Why we are initializing it? Because we will add the elements into this sum variable, right? So if, let's say, the first user enters, so there will be this sum is equals to 0. Sum is equal to 0. Sorry for my bad drawing, but I hope you will understand it. So sum is 0. So we will add sum plus num0. So 2 plus 0, the sum will become 2. Sum value is updated to now 2. It's 2 now, right? Now, and then we will increment I, and then we'll move on to the second element, and we will say 2 plus 3, it is 5. Now the value of sum is updated to 5. Now 5 will be added to 1, and the sum value will be updated to 6. And then the 6, we will move on to the next element, and we'll add 2 to the sum was 6. 6 plus 2, 8, right? And we'll move on to the next element, the last element, 5. 8 plus 5, 13. So our answer should be 13, and this is the formula for that. Initially sum was 0. 0 plus num I, so we will move from I0 is equals to I less than 5, the same scenario we have used here in this for loop, right? So we'll say for j is equal, so we can I and j, you can use any one of them, it doesn't matter. J is equal to 0, j j less than n, and j plus plus. right? Now we need to do sum is equals to sum plus num j, right? This will this will give us first the value of j is 0, so it will add some value is 0, so 0 plus the zeroth element of the array, it will give us some answer. It will be assigned to this some value will be updated to some value, as I mentioned in here. It will be updated to first two and then five and so on, until and unless this condition becomes false, right? So you need to know a for loop very well. How does a for loop work? Only then you can understand this program, right? Now we just need to print the value of the sum. The sum is percentage %d, and we'll just write sum. Perfect. Now let's see if our program works. Yep. So enter the number of elements that you want to add. How many? Let's see. We have to add five numbers. The first element one, second element two. Okay, why it's not working? I get it. Yes, we haven't this address operator here. Yeah. So I forgot to write. We did a mistake here. I forgot to just um, write the address operator. This is really important. Each time the program will store the value of the first element and then the second element and so on. So now let's run this again. Enter the number of elements. Five elements I want to add. First element one, second element two, three, four, five, and the sum is 15. And it is correct. This is sum is 15. Right. Now let's do it again for sorry. Let's do it again and let's see if it works for negative numbers also, right? 5 minus 1 minus 2 minus 3 minus sorry minus 4, let let's say 10. Sorry, 10. So the answer is 0 because minus 4 minus 3 minus 2 minus 1 is minus 10 and plus 10 the sum is 0. So it works well. Now we need to change this program C program to add n numbers. This we just did this one, and now we will add it to n natural numbers. So natural number starts from 1. It doesn't include any negative integers or 0. So whenever the user will enter the any negative integer or 0 value, the program should just skip it and just add the rest of it. So in this sum, the for loop sum, we will just make one conditional statement. If num i num I is less than or equal to 0, just don't execute this code and just continue, right? Just skip it, right? So there's one function continue for it. Continue. Else what you should do? Else you should do what? That you should do this. Else you should just sum it, right? Right. Perfect. So if the user enters any negative value, we have stored any negative value for j is equal to 0, so it will be not I j, sorry. So if for j is equal to 0, j less than n j plus plus, if the num j is less than or equal to 0, just continue, and else just sum the rest of the elements to the sum variable. Let's see if it works. Enter the elements, five elements I want to add. Okay, so I first my value is 1, right? 2, 3. Now I am writing minus 2 and minus 4. So my answer should be 6 because it should neglect minus values. Okay, let's not do okay, minus 4. Minus 4 is right. 1 plus 2 plus 3, it should be 6, and it shouldn't add this to these values. Perfect. So the number sum is 6 because the program just skipped these two values -2 and -4 because it is less than 0. So this was a program to add n integers and n natural numbers taken from the user. I hope you understand this really well, and just follow these steps, and in the future videos we will also learn more. We'll do some practice for more programs. So I hope you like the video. Please hit the like, subscribe button, and if you have any questions regarding this C program, please let me know in the comments. I will try to answer that in the comments. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.